The Not Cast, life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends, everything that should make you happy. But still, there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to episode 29 of the Notcast, Imposter Syndrome, 3 secrets to stop feeling like a fraud and accomplish true greatness.
Oosh.
I love it. There has to be a sound every time.
I'm going to run out of them soon.
You cannot run out of sounds.
No, but that's going to have to become a prep, isn't it? It's like, oh, what sound am I going to use this week?
Okay, no.
I'll add it to the list. So, imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
What does imposter syndrome mean to you, Ms. Dave?
Oh, wow. Like, this one definitely grew for me as I delved into it on my reflections. And I kind of realized that it's infiltrated nearly every single area of my life for most of my life, actually. So it's more recent for me to not be in that space hardly ever really now. But yeah.
You've transcended the imposterism.
I have transcended the imposterism. Go me.
It's interesting you're saying that because, yeah, when I was doing my reflection on this and doing a bit of reading and research into it more than I'd done in the past, it was like, oh shit, yeah, this kind of explains my life.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
I resonated a lot more with this more than I thought. I mean, I'd heard the term before, and I've worked with people who've used it. I've never really used the label myself, but when I was reading about it, I was like, yeah, this definitely does resonate with me. Like this collection of things.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I had these moments where I was just like, oh no, it was most of my life in most areas. Yeah, I just felt like a fraud. Yeah.
So doing my wordery stuff, my word research. So I started with imposter. Mm-hmm. So imposter, a person who pretends to be someone else in order to deceive others, especially for fraudulent gain.
Love that.
So for me, there's some intentionality there.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I hear in that. I mean, that's interestingly, it didn't say there was an etymology, but it's linked to the word impose.
Right.
And impose is to force an unwelcome decision or ruling on someone, or to take advantage of someone by demanding their attention or commitment. And the etymology for that is to inflict or deceive. So again, there's some intentional negative control thing with somebody.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Well, it made me think, because where I was thinking about it is, because we often think of imposter syndrome as this thing that affects somebody. Mm-hmm. But I was like, well, how might the person be creating that? Like how when I think about my imposter syndrome that I've experienced, like how would I be creating that? And I do wonder sometimes where there's a creating of it through a fear of the being found out. There's like this. There's a hiding almost.
Yeah, absolutely. Like that definitely resonates for me. I was just hiding all the parts of me that I believed or my story told me wasn't okay.
Yeah. And so for me, if I'm choosing to hide, then arguably there's part of me that knows I'm hiding that.
Yeah, right.
So then it would make sense to me that I'm judging myself for being fraudulent, because even though, you know, it's that trying to achieve safety because I don't want what the negative consequence of being found out is, it's still that I am being deceptive on some level, or at least I think it can be interpreted that way by myself.
Yeah. Well, that's how I used to interpret it. It's like I'm hiding something from people. Yeah. Like, if only they could see how incompetent I really am, but I'm having to hide that. Like, and if they saw that, I don't even know what would happen. Like, the shit would hit the fan. But in my non-deserving kind of state or story, it's just like, okay, I have to hide these things from people. So yeah, it was a kind of knowingly doing it thing. And so then there was always the urgency, the thing in my mind about, but what if you get found out? What if they really truly uncover that you don't even have any idea how to human? Like, what would they do? What would they do? So I have to hide that. I have to pretend like I do know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Well, I definitely experienced that when I was working and I was promoted to the level of my incompetence, and I wasn't really comfortable with the job position. And I remember there was a point where my bosses were changing over, and the old boss said to me, "Oh yeah, if you can just send the plan to your new boss." And I like froze. And it was only like, so this was like a few milliseconds really, but in the head, like a bomb went off in my head, and it was suddenly like, fuck, the plan's shit. He's going to see that I'm shit and that I don't know what I'm talking about, and blah, 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 blah. And basically I had an anxiety attack in my head, I think. I didn't go into a massive panic attack, but my head exploded for about 10 or 20 minutes. And then I just went into a massive depression, really. I think that fucked me for a few days.
Yeah.
But it was all because it was like, shit, someone else is going to find out that I don't know what I'm talking about and that I'm terrible at this job, and that can't happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's weird because, like, I'm thinking to myself now, so then there's also a level of deception with myself, because actually I'm telling myself I can't do something, which I can actually do because I actually do it. So yeah, all sorts of levels of deception going on there.
I think that's the thing. That's where I was coming at it when I was thinking about the imposter thing, because like I don't want it to come across as finger pointy, but I think there is a level of I am being deceptive. I mean, arguably 3 because I'm trying to protect myself. But I do think there's another side of it. So I found this nice process that it was talking about, which I thought laid it out really nicely, that we start with a task or something that needs to be done for the imposter, or there's someone who thinks they're an imposter. There's a task, and then there's a worry and doubt about it, which for me is like the expectation. Like, I've got to do this thing. So the worry and doubt about being able to do it, about the capability. So one of 2 things tends to happen. There's the over preparation or the procrastination.
Yeah.
Right. And I've definitely been there with both. It's like, fuck, I need to do this thing, prepare, because then I won't fail. Or it's like, shit, maybe I'll just put it off, or because it feels uncomfortable, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Then though, if the thing gets accomplished, there's this initial relief. But what then happens, there's one of 2 explanations. It's either that it was because of effort.
Yep.
It was like pure effort, or it was luck.
Yeah. Every time.
Right. Because then what happens, because those are the 2 explanations, if there's any positive feedback from anybody, then the achievement's discounted. It's explained away. It's that but thing, which is then there's that gets to keep in place this idea that I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, I was like, yeah, that really explains my experience, whereby I would see that if somebody else could do something that I couldn't, like, even though even though I didn't say I believe this out loud, it was like, if someone could do something I couldn't, I would see it as being something special about them, or at least something unspecial about me that meant I would never be able to do that.
Yeah.
Or it'd be too difficult for me. But if I could do something, I didn't value it. I'd be like, well, it's just
it's
just easy, isn't it?
Yeah,
because I could do it. You just have to practice. You just have to learn it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That completely and utterly resonates with my experience as well. It was just like that. Like I remember one of the times that was really stood out to me was when I started my placement, or when I was doing my degree, and like I literally went into a school to work with like kids, and I'm going there and I'm walking in and I'm thinking, oh my God, like somebody's going to find out that I'm just playing at this and I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, what is going to happen? And even sat in the room with this 5-year-old, my very first client ever, I'm just sitting there thinking, oh my God, any minute now, there's going to be some light or something that goes off going, she doesn't really know what she's doing. She doesn't really know what she's doing. Like, she sat in this room with this 5-year-old and she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's going to fuck him up. And the whole time. And then when I walked out, I was like, oh, well, he's 5. He's not really going to say anything, you know, like, how would he know if it was good or bad anyway? Just explained it away like that. It was just like, yeah, because obviously it couldn't have been me.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
I knew what I was doing. Yeah. And I had a lot of experiences like that.
I used to have it with playing music, especially when I was running an open mic, because when I was running it, like I had to show up. It's different if I was going to just turn up and play, because, you know, I could easily just not, or turn up and and not actually get up there. But as I was running the night, it's like, oh shit, I've kind of actually got to do this, which was good in a way, because it meant that I had to do the work. But I used to panic like fuck, and like panic learn songs. I'd be like, I've got to be able to do it like this, and it's got to be good enough, and all of that. And even though when I would then get up and play, I would have people sometimes come up to me afterwards and be like, oh mate, that was really good. And in my head, I'd be like, no, it wasn't. Like, if you've got shit in your ears, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Luckily, I got to a point I stopped actually saying that to people, or at least, not that I ever said you got shit in your ears, but I stopped disagreeing with them, because I remember years ago, like a mate had played with his band and I thought they were awesome. And I remember telling him how good it was. And he basically just argued with me about how terrible they'd been. And I was like, oh, this is what happens when when I disagree with someone when they're trying to give me a compliment.
Yeah. So
I stopped doing that, but I still didn't believe them. I genuinely thought, like, no, you're wrong. And this is what it was thinking about this stuff that I came to, like, for me, imposter syndrome, I think it's about a superiority, about inferiority.
Yeah.
It's like, I know that I'm less than. I know I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I've just got up and played this set. I've then feel bad about it. This person's gone, mate, that's awesome. And I've been like, oh no.
yeah, right. It's like, no, I'm like, no, that wasn't good at all. What are you talking about? What were you listening to, watching? What did you see? There must be something wrong with you.
Exactly. Clearly there's something wrong with your hearing, because I know that was substandard, and you clearly aren't I don't know, on my level to understand the complexity of my shitness.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then when it was people I knew, I just felt like, well, it's just because you know me. You have to say that. You have to say that. You have to say that was okay, right? You have to say that was okay. But if I did it in front of somebody that I didn't know, obviously they tell me the truth and they tell me that it wasn't any good. But yeah, I guess that's the very depth to which it kind of goes to.
Yeah, for me, it's just different. It's just different ways of my mind finding a way to hold on to that belief about, I mean, for me, it was not good enough. Right. And I know it can show up in other ways of like unworthy or undeserving or whatever. But yeah, for me, it was that. It was whatever the evidence is showing me, I have a way of explaining it that fits in line with my feelings of inferiority or whatever.
Completely. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So also, just for completion's sake, I did when I was doing some Googling.
Mm-hmm.
These were the kind of things that Google threw out as common experiences or symptoms, if you like, of imposter syndrome. Doubts their skills, talents, or accomplishments. Persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. Do not believe they deserve success or luck.
Mm-hmm.
Feel they are deceiving others because they aren't as intelligent as they portray. Self-perceived intellectual phoniness. Don't live up to expectations of their own or other people's. Tricked people into being friends with them. And success brings guilt.
Yeah. Yeah. Sadly enough, I've been there with all of them at some level.
Well, the success brings guilt was an interesting one for me. I'm trying to think if I ever experienced that. If I did, I didn't say that, but I suppose actually mine was the guilt avoidance. That was the compliments. If I got complimented for doing something well, I'd explain it I'd explain it away because I didn't feel it was deserving. It was some level of, oh no, you've got it wrong. You don't understand. Let me explain how it really works. You can take back your compliment.
Yeah. For me, there'd be times where I would just go, oh, it was just luck. It was just luck on the day. It was just a fluke, like any other day I would have fucked it up. But today just happened to be a lucky day for me. And just not being able to accept compliments full stop. Like not even hearing it. Or like bouncing it straight back.
Yeah.
Oh, you're great too.
Yeah. But you're even more great.
Yeah.
Let's take the spotlight off of me and put it back onto you where I'm more comfortable hiding in the shadows.
Yes. In my imposter self.
Well, because the more I was thinking about it, I do think this whole kind of phenomenon is rooted in failure. Like the failure is the thing that comes up, but it's not just failure, it's what failure means. For me, it's something like I need to stay close to the ground in that inferior position, because if I climb up to the top, I don't deserve that status, but also if I fall, then
it's a long way to drop.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it's something like that, and like failure is meaning something like rejection or shame or something. It's something like that. It's like failure is not just a mistake. Failure is like death. Yes,
absolutely. Because when I unpicked mine, that's kind of the starting point of it. It was like from a space of like controlling and overprotection, and expectation was where it kind of was born from when I looked backwards. And that fed into like failure and especially academic achievement, because that meant a lot to my family. And it just wasn't it didn't resonate with me. I was going through so much in my life that it wasn't going to happen. But that's how I was rated, I want to say, almost, right? It was like, oh, you're not good enough because you're never going to achieve what your brother will. So it was instantly like, stay where you're meant to be. And don't try and elevate above that, because you're only going to fail.
I was trying to think if I ever had any experiences of that kind of thing where it was, I remember the whole not good enough stuff. I remember getting that and like feeling like, but I'm trying to remember whether I ever felt like there was a wrongness or a danger with success, with being pulled off the pedestal, as it were, or being smited for being up there. There could well have been. I can't recall.
We'll find out in another episode of the Knockcast.
Link backs.
Oh yeah. Do you remember in episode 29?
You made it when you could start referring to your previous episodes.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. Yeah. And ain't no imposter syndrome getting in the way of that. Oh, gosh. Right. So we're on to the points now.
I guess we're on to the points.
Can we have your first point?
Can we have my first point? Oh, we absolutely can, Ms. Dave. So my first point is doubt your own doubt.
I should have gone first. But anyway.
Let me guess. You had that one.
I did. Of course I did.
Of course you did, with your 745 million points that you prep for every single session.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, doubt your own doubt.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I know I talk about this a lot, but I often call this positive doubt, just to kind of differentiate from the negative doubt. But it's that, for me, when I come back to what I was saying about, being a musician, it was this sense of, like, I knew my performance wasn't good. So when someone told me otherwise, I knew they were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't open at that point to considering maybe I've got it wrong. maybe maybe whatever I believe about myself or the way I'm seeing things isn't right. You know, and I know I even can get this. It's not like I'm completely cured of this. Like, I know we've had it with this podcast, right? Sometimes we come off air and I've been like, I felt like that episode didn't go very well. And you've been like, really? And I've been like, yeah, I don't know, didn't feel like I was in flow, thought I was chatting shit or whatever. And then when Joe's done the episode for us and I've got it back and I've transcribed it, I've been like, I heard that back very different. Actually, that was the right.
Yeah. Right.
But even that in itself it's that sort of stuff helps me to stay doubtful of those judgments that I get. If I get that judgment that will come in and be like, you know, that didn't go very well, or I've not done well, I'm a lot more open these days to essentially being wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past I definitely wasn't, and that kept me stuck at the bottom, as it were.
Yeah. I hear that. For this one, for me, like the first one I'm going to go with is self-inquiry. For me, like looking at my process, that process is present, it's recent, and there is no getting away from it. Like I have had to challenge myself. I have had to, like you said, I've had to question the doubt. I've had to question, where is that coming from? I've had to question, is this really real?
Mm-hmm.
Is it Amy? And be the one that confronts myself, essentially looks in the mirror. And it's like, yeah, is this really real? And asking the right questions. It's like, what am I believing that I deserve? Like, what am I believing I'm worthy of? What am I believing about myself? And what am I believing about other people? Like, what kind of judgments am I putting on other people that they're going to come up to me and just go, that was awesome, when it wasn't? And it's like, I'm judging them through my own judgment.
Yeah.
And so for me, it is really a case of when that does come up, because like it's probably something that I'll have to just have and be able to look at forever in some way, shape or form. But as soon as it comes up, rather than falling into it, I go to a space of, let's really look at that. Let's get curious. What's really going on? So I feel like reflection, self-inquiry is pivotal to the process.
Yeah, I agree. And what was coming up for me, I think the first stage, even before that, and before the, you know, doubting your own doubt, it's to really see that just because what we believe isn't truth.
Yeah.
Like there's a separation between truth and belief. And it's really obvious for me when we look at other people, like, you know, if you've got someone who's got really, really strong views on something like politics or racism or whatever, it's really clear. We say they've got strong views, or we label them an ist.
Yes.
of some description. But when it's us, I find it's different. Like, especially when we really strongly believe in something, it looks like truth.
Yeah.
And so for me, the first step is to see, oh, hang on a minute, maybe that's not absolute truth. Maybe it's a perspective. Because then I can start looking at, well, maybe I can doubt, because you can't doubt. It's like trying to doubt gravity. Like, good luck.
Yeah, right. It's like, what if it's not true though?
Yeah. So that's what was coming up for me as you were sharing your point.
Fabulous. So
my second point then, expose yourself.
Sorry, what now? Well, like right now. Okay, then.
That was a statement, not a request.
Okay. I didn't know the episode was going to go that way.
Well, this is audio only, just for our listeners.
Oh, dear me.
Well, let me clarify. Expose yourself rather than waiting to be exposed.
Love it. Yeah.
So for me, this is really about being honest with where you're at and about trusting yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So, like, for me, I remember when I was first practicing as a therapist, I was absolutely terrified of being found out, of being a new therapist, of not knowing what I was talking about, of having no experience. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I was anxious as fuck when somebody came in, and I'm there like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I need to be able to show that I know what I'm doing and be calm and confident, and of course that was a lot of pressure. And it was also kind of, if you think about it, it was based on a premise of bullshit, because of course I wasn't going to be cool and calm and confident and experienced, because I was none of those things being a new therapist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And something really shifted for me once I started to trust myself to be more honest about where I'm at and where I'm at with whatever. You know, I even had a conversation not long ago with a client, and I can't remember the specifics, but some of the stuff he was asking me about, I remember saying to him, like, yeah, to be honest, like, I'm still trying to figure that stuff out now with where I am. Like that, those are the kind of questions I'm asking. And I shared where I was with, you know, sometimes it's this and it could be this and that. But I was very much like, can't give you a definitive answer, mate. Don't know yet.
Yeah.
Currently above my level of understanding. And like now I see the kind of, I want to say I see the value in that, but what I mean is I see the connectiveness about that. Like I could see that we were more connected over me being able to share that kind of experience and me being honest like that.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than like in the past where I would have been like, fuck, I need to know what I'm talking about and have all the answers, which for me is very disconnecting, because in my head I'm trying to then portray this image, but actually I'm freaking out, and that's obviously going to come across in my energy and my body language.
I like that. I love that, actually. And I was thinking what a difference it's made when I have been able to do that.
Yeah.
And there was something invested in it for me, like not being able to expose myself and say, actually, I don't know. Like there was a lot invested in, I have to know everything. Like, otherwise I'm not worthy. I can't ask the question, what do we do here? Or how do we do this? Or because then it's just like, that would be terrible. That would write off my whole thing as a therapist. That it's just, yeah, the difference, the relief in being able to go, I don't know. And that's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
100%. And it happened to me even the other week. I was supposed to do I did do a talk for the networking group that I'm part of. And I was thinking I could do it on psychology and some of the stuff I normally do, but I was like, I don't really feel inspired. I thought, I could do it on Kabbalah stuff I've been learning. And I felt really inspired. But then I sat down and I'm like, that's a big fucking subject. Where the hell do I start? And I've never tried to put that into a coherent structure to talk about it to anybody. Realized about 10 p.m. when I was still going and making notes that I'd probably cut off bitten off more than I could chew, as it were, which you could say is over preparation. But what was really interesting for me when I'm reflecting on it with this kind of episode is when I got there, I very much said to him, I'm going to talk to you about Kabbalah. I said, but I'm still learning this stuff. So I'm going to attempt to amble through it, but I can't promise it all entirely makes sense. And I said to him, like, feel free to ask questions, but yeah, can't promise I'm going to be able to answer them all. And it just took a lot of pressure off me, and we had a really great laugh. And I surprised myself that I knew more than I thought I did. But there were also some points where I was like, yeah, this part, actually, this is the bit that I least understand. So, and I could make a joke of it.
Yeah, absolutely. 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 And that leads on to my second point.
Yes, second point.
Yeah. Okay. So second point is really what happens if you don't know. So for me, it was about facing that fear, facing the dragon. So what is the story? Because actually what I realized is I'd never really gone beyond that point of feeling like a fraud or feeling like it was just a fluke, or I'd never actually sat down and gone, so what if you get it wrong?
Yeah.
So what's really going to happen to you if you make a mistake, or if you don't know how to do this, or if you make a fool of yourself in front of people? What's really going to happen, Amy?
Yeah.
You know, and it was really unpicking the story and asking myself those questions to the point of having no proof left, having no, like, the veil just kind of dissolved. It's like, oh, this makes no sense. This can't be real. Like, what is going to happen? The worst that can happen is, I don't know, one person might judge me and go, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
But what difference does that really make to me? How does that impact my okayness and my beingness as a person? So yeah, I feel like that's a really kind of important space to go. It's like, yeah, what's really going to happen? What are you really afraid of? Like, what's the real story underneath all of those things? And just going through each question, really, and going, what's really true?
Yeah.
Is that really, really true? Like, is it really true that you're going to stand up in front of 20 people and you really don't know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, for me, that's really helped me, and it still helps me in the moment.
No, I love that. And I think, like, for me, like, to to answer your question, like, for me, it was about being criticized. It was about being rejected. It was all about being, I guess it was about being, I want to say shamed. I don't know what exactly the right words are, but it was all like, for me, it was about being seen to fuck up or seen to be less than, and therefore rejected, left alone. It was all that stuff. That was really, I think, always was at the bottom of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like I've had to kind of go into those spaces and then dig deeper and further and kind of go, and then what happens?
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line of it for me, my story is that speaks to something about me.
Yeah.
As a person. And the reality of it is that it doesn't, unless I allow it to.
Yeah, for me, it often comes down to, like, if there's that sense of, yeah, but I know I'm less than. I've just got to continue to prove it. It's like, well, what happens if you don't? And often there's a bunch. I do find, like, I do really feel that beliefs like that are really protective of the fears of the stuff that we're afraid of experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's where the face the dragon stuff comes for me. It's like, oh, so if how do I see I'm not worthy? Oh, so I have to be vulnerable with I have to show my vulnerabilities to people that I really care about, with the threat that they might reject me forever. It's like, yeah, which is fucking terrifying. But but if I actually do that and then they don't reject me, it's like, oh,
right. And it's like the story starts to fall apart. But I think there was something for me in, like, keeping myself in that story. Like, I did everything I could to keep myself in that story. And now I'm more likely to sit there and go, okay, so what is the worst case scenario, Amy?
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? You know, and if somebody doesn't want to speak to you, then really, were they your friend? What does that say more about you or them? And I just have to dig down into it and then flip it and go, well, what's the best case scenario? You know, what is the best case scenario? That you are amazing and it goes really, really well, right? Yeah.
So I had a third point prepped, but I had a few backup points.
Oh.
And I think one of these feels more appropriate. And I suppose the one I want to go with is, success won't bring you love.
Tell me more.
Well, something, as I was reflecting on this, when I looked back on my experience, like, a lot of, I never thought it really, but I actually have always been quite a driven, determined person. But that was kind of coupled with this whole terror of failing, and therefore this imposter syndrome, not good enough stuff, whatever you want to label it. So it's a real conflict.
Yeah.
But because of that sense of there was something different about me, something wrong about me, I'm not okay, I do believe what I was trying to do in some level was, it was this idea that if I could be successful enough, then I would get that love, or I'd get that happiness. I'd feel that connection that I really wanted. I know I talked about it on a previous episode where it was like, you know, if I can just write enough amazing songs and sing them to people, that I'll get all the love and admiration that I'm really after.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a real backwards way of going about it, because for me, I experienced love through being loving and being in those connected relationships or any kind of relationship, friendships, whatever, but I'm showing up with my vulnerability there, giving love and then receiving it back.
Yeah.
Not standing on a stage singing at people. But that feels safer, right?
Yeah.
If I'm up on some kind of metaphorical podium and I'm doing whatever and I'm getting adoration back at me, it's like, great, I feel awesome until I leave the podium, and then I'm alone.
Then I'm all alone again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it took me a long time to see that. And when I reflect on the people I've worked with as well, who've kind of talked about imposter syndrome, or they talked about not good enoughness, there's often something there about this, like, if you like, unlovability, or there's this fear of connecting, this fear of being really seen for who they are. And so then there's this conflict of, I need to somehow disconnect myself enough, but still try and get what I need in terms of connection, which I think just becomes a bit of a mind fuck, really.
Completely. Yeah, completely.
So yeah, success won't bring you love.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. I totally, that's enough said about that. Okay. So my third point. I don't know which one to go with now.
But you normally have so many.
That's exactly it.
I'm sensing a pattern here, Ms. Dove.
Good for you. Yeah. For me, it's get present and be with yourself and be with the feeling and be with those thoughts without judging them. Get quiet and let it happen.
Now what happened?
Let the feeling happen. Witness it. Be with it. Go through the struggle. Because the only way I truly found out that nothing was actually going to happen to me was sitting with it. Sitting with that feeling, sitting with those judgments, and rather than interacting with them, just watching them, watching it play out in my mind. And then I got to the end point, I was like, oh, it's not that bad. It's okay. I've got this. Yeah. So it's allowing myself to sit with those feelings of fear and, what if I mess this up, and then I'll be embarrassed, and then I'll feel ashamed, and just allowing myself to sit with that. Because actually I'd made it a lot bigger in my head than it was. Like somehow those feelings are going to come out of the darkness and overcome me, and I'll never be able to, get up from that space ever again. And that would be the demise of me. But actually, when I allowed myself to really just sit with it and hold the love for myself in those feelings and embrace myself through it and kind of be like, it's okay to feel like that. It's actually okay to feel like that. I think there was a lot more in it when I was being hateful to myself because of it, because it just made it a lot bigger. So just letting those feelings come out, all of them, and just feeling them allowed them to dissolve. And it was also like letting myself have the proof that it's okay to feel those feelings. Like, it's all right. They can't do anything to me. They're just feelings. And actually the judgments are my own. They're not other people's judgments. I'm judging myself. Like, then I could see where it was really coming from. But normally I wouldn't stop enough to do that. I would just go with that initial thought feeling and ride with that, and then play out the story again and again and again. So for me, disrupting it meant that I sat with it. And it's just like, yeah, so what happens? What happens if you step out onto the stage with all of that going on? What's really going to happen? And it was like realizing when I became present to it, actually nothing happens. Nothing happens. Whether I hold that feeling or thought or not, I still go and deliver.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, I think that's a key thing about being present with it. And for me, there's a lot in that word present, because I didn't get that for a long time. But I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and she said, I never got when you were talking about sitting with it. And she was talking about how, to her, sitting with it was basically just letting it consume her. And I was like, and then she told me about what she did see eventually. And, it led me to think about a distinction that I think in that sitting with it, I think there needs to be some level of I don't know whether this is true, but maybe some level of awareness or insight that actually these feelings aren't telling me about truth. And these thoughts that I've got, whatever's coming up for me is my perspective, my perception in the moment. It's not telling me about, absolute truth. Because I think, if I've got these feelings coming up and they're awful and I think they're going to kill me, or I think that whatever I'm worried about is true, then I'm probably am going to want to avoid them like fuck.
Yeah.
But if I know on some level that that's not true, then I guess there can be, I don't know whether safety is the right word, but there's enough doubt in the feelings maybe that I can, or doubt in that experience being true, that I can then sit with it and then see what happens if I don't try and fight it, if I don't try and run away from it.
Yeah. Being able to sit with it for me and being present with it really is about, bringing the awareness to it in the now.
Yeah.
But it's practice, because there is an awareness level to it. Because yes, previously I've kind of sat with all of the feelings and fed myself into the story. So there is a level of what you said before about doubting it.
Yeah.
Right. There is a level of, I'm going to put the doubt in there, see what happens.
Yeah.
What if this isn't real? And what if I just sit with it? What's going to happen to it? And for me, it sort of starts to dissolve, because if I try to keep the story going and I'm present with it, the story falls apart.
Yeah. Could you see something new, right?
Yeah, because there's only so far it can go, because I've never actually taken it that far, right? The initial feeling or whatever I get, I react to that. And so I think, it's going to play out. But if I allow myself to sit with it step by step, it gets to a point where it's like, this just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, though, I think there does need to be there's almost some presupposition beforehand that, I'm going in with the intention to see something new. I'm going in there with some level of doubt or some level of, do you know what? I might have been wrong before. We can come back to the dragon facing metaphor, right?
Yeah.
If I'm running away from the dragon because it looks real and it looks a lot bigger than me, and someone's going, just face the bloody thing. It's like, have you seen the size of its fucking teeth? But if I start to consider, hang on a minute, maybe I've not seen him, or actually maybe I am more powerful than I thought, well, then I start to doubt my original thought, then I'm more likely to take that turn, or to start to consider to take that turn. Well, then I'm intentional about it. Yeah. And I think that's the difference. And I think if we miss that, that's where sitting with it can become basically just sentencing yourself to a hell of feelings and brain mash.
That was an interesting choice of it. It's so funny that what it reminded me of was when I used to be afraid of the dark, or I'd hear a noise when I was little, and I'd just put the whole duvet over my head, and it would be in that, just trying to peek out of one little corner, right, just so that I could see that actually it was okay and there was nothing there. And that's what it takes, right? It's that just being able to take a peek at it while you're safe and know that you're going to be okay. And that for me starts the process, because if there can be that little bit of doubt, then you can take it from there. Yeah.
I love that. So anything else you want to share about imposter syndrome? Any other secrets, tips, tricks?
Well, there's a lot, actually.
Of course there is.
Well, of course there is. Of course there is. I know, I would just want to be real and say, for me, it was a process. I had to engage in that process. I had to know that it wasn't just something that was just going to disappear. It was something that I had to look into and be curious about and understand myself in it. But the biggest thing for me was coming from a space of love rather than the space of fear. I feel like that's really, really an important process in itself. Yeah. Because when I was hating myself for the imposter syndrome, it really wasn't a very successful process.
No, I imagine not.
Yeah. So it's how can I love myself where I am right now?
Gotcha. So any closing thoughts on imposter syndrome?
Of course.
Go on then, hit me.
Really?
through the screen.
Okay, so my closing thoughts for today. Stop right here, right now, and look at yourself. There is only one you. There is nobody else like you. No one that sees the world as you do or has your gifts. Don't waste your time playing small and minimizing yourself. Step into your power and your glory and own who you are. All of it. You are not an imposter. How can you be an imposter when you are the only one that knows how to be you? You are a glorious, beautiful soul inhabiting the most wonderful body. See yourself as the light that you truly are and shine.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
So I guess my closing thoughts are, what if you're only human like the rest of us? What if you don't have to be so superior in your inferiority? What if you're okay? What would to happen if you started to doubt all the things you doubt about yourself? Start to connect with yourself and other people and trust yourself to share what you're most scared to share. What might you see then?
Love it.
29 episodes now.
I know! 29!
Done and dusted.
Whoop! You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery and Deep Shit with your TheraCoach hosts,
Amy Dave.
and David Bird.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's AMI.DAVE.11.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing, helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
The Notcast.